Insane moments on paternity court.
I got a good sugar daddy. My sugar daddy been there for 10 years, have never ever left my side. I would never leave him. He come way before this.
Oh! You're claiming that 4 other men are claiming
Yes, it
to
could
be
others out there.
It may be others, but she's known.
You know, they got all this time on their hands, I don't see.
Miss Thomas and her daughter refused to accept the young defendant's son into their family because they believe that Miss Arbster was fooling around with other men and now has engaged their son in a paternity trap because he is too gullible. However, the baby mama had this take on the whole situation.
Ms. Armster, you are here with the plaintiff's son, Mr. Griffin.
Yes, Your Honor.
You believe you were pregnant by Mr. Griffin before you had sex with another man, and the only reason his family is denying paternity is because they hate you.
Yes, Your Honor.
With disorder in the court, the judge cleared up the room by asking if Miss Arbster was sure about being with the plaintiff's son only during the time of conception, and the defendant affirmed that there was no other man. Listening to this, the judge moved to the alleged, who had this response.
During the time of conception, who were you sleeping with? Do you believe that as well, or do you have some doubts?
Well, I have my doubts as well because I wasn't around her a lot of the time during the conception of him and what she's saying, but I don't think my family would lie to me and, tell me anything wrong to set me off track.
Wow, that was confusing. But what was more topsy-turvy is that Mr. Griffin was there through the whole pregnancy and was present at the hospital, but he refused to sign the birth certificate after getting a call from his mother. So, did mommy change his mind?
I did not sign it because of what my mom said. I signed it for my own reasons. I didn't know for sure if he was mine or not, and I didn't want to have to go through a lot of things that people were telling me, like it was going to be very hard for you to get the name changed or do a lot of things if he's not yours and you find out all late.
Okay, if one may not get emotional and take a moment to think of a valid move, nonetheless, they were not being cold, but just cautious. Auntie and Grandma had even taken in the young baby mama, which she seemed to forget.
I would want to see her do well. And on top of that, if that's my nephew, yes, I'm gonna step up as an auntie and help raise my nephew. But we have no choice to be here today for a paternity test because of the rumors and how she carried herself as a woman.
Still, Miss Arbster was not ready to understand their side of the story. I mean, she herself had told them that she was with another man. Clearly, the way the plaintiff was acting had to do with the baby mama's past dealing with men. But can you blame them?
In your mind, there's no one else that could be the father of this child. You're certain of that.
I'm certain.
And
Other guys
since
that been
Cameron's
my
been
mom's
born, have they treated him well,
No.
like family?
No,
have.
they
Yes,
have
we
not.
have.
They don't have to want him. The only reason why he got a DNA test is for him.
Even the baby daddy told the court that other men were claiming the baby to be his, and they popped up at the defendant's house to see how their baby was doing. Shocker, right? Why did you leave that out, Miss Armster?
You're claiming that 4 other men are claiming
Yes, it
to
could
be.
be others out there.
It may be others, but she's known.
You know,
as
they got all this time on their hands. I don't see. They got all this time on their hands. I ain't Let's get some order.
Well, that was not just it. The defendant's own sister was shaming her around the town, saying all sorts of things about her and her baby. Still, both sides wanted the baby to be Mr. Griffin's, as they had grown feelings for the child. Let's see if the result will finally set the record straight or not.
In the case of Thomas and Fields versus Armster and Griffin, as it pertains to 5-month-old Cameron Armster, Mr. Griffin, you are not his father. Don't do that.
There is no papa play in young Kingston's life because his alleged father blames his mother for cheating on him with her sugar daddy. But Miss Lean knows what she was up to and wants the paternity dispute to end once and for all.
Mr. Green has been denying my child since day one. He's been denying him for 3 years. He has never came around like he's supposed to. I have to call. I have to do so much to get this man into my child's life. But at the end of the day, I just want him to step up.
Further, Mr. Green told the court that he had done his best to meet the mommy halfway, but his attitude was just so cranky that he maintained his distance from both the baby and the mama. That sounds decent, right? Well, the bummer was that it was way far away from the truth.
She knew I had a girlfriend. She even tried to call
He
me
knew he had a
girlfriend.
girlfriend, so that's his problem.
So how did you explain
to your girlfriend you lived in the house with Ms. Lee?
Oh, he couldn't. I called him, woke him out his sleep and made him start talking and didn't let him know she was on the phone until the end of the conversation to let her know, yeah, your dude over here and I'm pregnant.
So while he was far flung, Mr. Green had moved in with the plaintiff and played both sides with a woman. This shifted the focus to the infidelity of Miss Lee, who told the court that it happened only one time. And in her defense, she wasn't in paternity court to win him back. The sassy woman owned her dirt and wanted to focus on the part of her son lacking his father.
So you're at the point that you've even had to sleep with him?
Right. Do you
To
remember?
get him to come around?
That's not true, Young. We didn't do nothing.
We did something.
She don't like nobody on which she wants me to
My
herself,
child
period. That's what
is-
it boils
all
down
he has-
to.
he
It's
didn't-
more than just a child. She
I'm not
wants me to
asking
herself.
for money from him. I'm asking for time from him.
After this, the judge got to the conception part. It turns out that since they were friends with benefits, Mr. Green denied the baby right from the start, especially when baby mama had another man paying for the baby's needs.
I got you a good sugar daddy. My sugar daddy been there for 10 years, have never ever left my side. I would never leave him. He come way before this. We've never had sex before. You know, he might want some pictures.
But
Oh!
See, Miss Lilt had no guilt about bringing another man into their equation, because according to her, the sugar daddy was more manly than him. So you can imagine why the defendant had such strong doubts about the baby, especially when plaintiff's infertility was stirred into the situation.
I told him that because
3
at the
years
end of the day,
straight.
I want to continue
3 years straight.
doing stuff with him, you know, without. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and I got pregnant because we didn't do it once. We were doing it for the whole month. So it wasn't like this is the one. You the only person I slept with. He took me to work and brought me back home.
All I can say is that this feud didn't have to linger for 3 years, as they could have gotten a DNA test way before this. That sounds simple, right? Well, it wasn't that easy getting tested around this mama, and the alleged father had a whole demonstration to prove it.
first of all, he was born on June 3rd. I went to the hospital. I asked the hospital, you know, can we go ahead and get DNA testing done, whatever. So a few days later going by, she's telling me, oh, it's too soon for him to come outside. He was just born, this and that. She refused right then, Your Honor. She refused every time.
Again.
Down the road, she refused every time.
I don't know if you found that impressive or not, because baby mama was not ready to play along. According to Miss Green, she was always up for the test, as it was about her son, and nothing was more important than that.
It don't take this long to get a DNA test.
was on
What
her.
he
She
wanted me to do was
procrastinated.
pay for it. I felt like we both had them.
I
You
told
pay
her I'd
half,
pay
I
half.
pay half. But they ain't got
But it
nothing to
just
do with
feels
me.
like, I mean, both of you all going back and forth,
We
back and
are.
forth. It's like a power play after power play. I mean, Kingston wants some papa play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even after all that out on the table, Miss Lee was persistent that there was no other possible father for her son. Yeah, because in her books, Kingston was the spitting image of her father. And when pictures of both were shown on the screen, her reaction was something like this.
Bingo.
She was
Don't that look like the
100%
same
sure.
baby? Look like the same baby. That's him in
That's-
the blue.
But once you seen the
and that's
picture,
my
that's
son
when
right
she
there.
felt more confident.
That's him.
But you can't
That's
just go off the
him.
picture, though.
So, Ms. Lee, at the end of the day, we know that the biology controls it all, that really it's about who you slept with, not who he looks like.
Right.
Yep, like it or not, looks can be very deceiving. That's why in this courtroom, we stick to DNA facts. Since there was another man involved in the picture, the resulting envelope was inevitable.
In the case of Lee versus Green, when it comes to 3-year-old Kingston Lee, it has been determined by this court. Mr. Green, you are the father.
Told you. I told you.
Miss Jones has dragged her father to paternity court to set the record straight for herself and the other two siblings straight. But in Daddy's defense, his Rockstar career came with a promiscuous package, and now he's not sure if he fathered any of his children.
I feel that it's a spit in my face and a disrespect to me and my mother, because I'm 37 years old. So all of a sudden, 37 years later, you need a test. When all the children that he had in his lifetime, my mother was the only one he was married to, and I think it's a joke.
See, even these startup testimonies tell that things are about to get messy. So Miss Jones believes that her father's doubt was spit in her face, which was too much for any child to bear. Whereas the defendant blamed his ex-wives for messing around with associates, which was the reason why they were standing in the courtroom.
Now, Mr. Jones, you argue you were a rock star, running around with many different women and have reason to doubt.
She had a male associate that was always over their house, you know, and her parents didn't allow me to come over to the house because they didn't like me because I was poor.
You heard Sir Victor. There's reservations in this matter. But his firstborn pointed out that it was his cheap tactic of leaving some of his children out of his will, because he had no idea how many women he actually slept with.
So there was another guy.
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you think he's denying paternity? What do you
His
think?
lawyer told him he needed a DNA test in order to leave his kids in the will.
That does sound about right. Nonetheless, Mr. Victor had no remorse about what he had done. In his defense, he was just being young and dumb. Listening to that, the judge pointed out that there were 2 young people outside who were possibly his and didn't know him.
His 60s, and he's catching you. All of a sudden, you got the case of morality, and you want to see, you hoping that some of these kids are not yours, so you won't feel bad about not being there. Just say what it is. You know what I mean? That's all it is in my eyes, and I think it's an ultimate disrespect.
After listening to this, the judge said what I'd been wondering from the start of the trial. How did he pull such an act? Well, Victor told the stories about laying up with women and appearing after a few months saying that he was the father, which was hard for him to believe.
Your Honor, I might have 7 kids by 7 different women. I'm not ashamed of that. You know, I was young, I was wild. I love them. They're beautiful kids.
He didn't request the other kids to come up here. He just requested.
Okay, in that case, it'll take a lot of testing. To make things clear, it was time to get Edward in, who told the court he'd only seen pictures of his alleged father, and this was his first time meeting him.
You've ever met or seen this man that could potentially be your father?
Correct.
What were you told?
I was about probably like 6, 7 years old. I'd ask my mom, you know, who's my dad? You know, she had pictures and stuff of him coming over when I was like months old. She told me he has a lot of kids. You were probably like the least of his worries.
The second candidate in this mix was Miss Brown, who had only met her so-called father once in her lifetime. But with the assistance of her older stepsister, even Mr. Victor told the court that he was going to marry Miss Hobson's mother until his family stepped in and split them up.
And her mom was gonna move down to Georgia, but her camp folks, they tricked her. They was gonna buy her a lot, but they tricked her. So she, instead of moving down to Georgia, she got with my coworker and started dating him. And so she told me Molly had a new dad now. So 'cause I love the mom, and I love Molly.
That is not the story I was told.
They had to pay for their parents' mistakes. With so much time gone, there's only one thing that can heal those scars of the past, and you know it's the DNA result. Let's get to that part.
When it comes to the paternity of 24-year-old Ms. Molly Hobson, Mr. Jones, you are her father. Mr. Clayton Edwin, Mr. Jones, you are his father.
Grandma here is sure that there's no way her son is the father of the plaintiff's daughters, while the teenage mom is sure who her baby daddy is. She even told the judge how the passing of her boyfriend and the denial of his mother was ruining her daughter's life.
These past 4 years, everything has been on me and my mother. My daughter is beautiful, and you missed out on 4 years. Not only me, not only me.
Single parent.
You're absolutely correct, but you were a single parent as well. You were a single. You raised Desmond by yourself. You raised Desmond by yourself.
Miss Page had lost her son, but it didn't soften her at all, as she was not ready to cut the plaintiff any slack. The woman clearly lacked compassion. She was adamant that Miss Lusk and her mother were only after the money.
I had insurance on my son. I had an insurance policy. They're out
that we knew nothing about.
No, unless it's proven, it's not my son's
You
baby.
never posted it on Facebook.
Miss Lusk.
Knew nothing about her.
It is your testimony today, Ms. Lusk is attempting to get a portion of that money.
Yes, Your Honor.
But Miss Lusk was not ready to put up with such claims. She made it plain in the court too. The plaintiff told the court how once the grandma had walked in on her and her son. Oh, quite a revelation. What have you got to say now, Miss Page?
When was the first time you physically saw me looking like an innocent child?
Yes,
you asked to go to the school
to see my child. You asked to go to the school. Of course she wasn't showing.
What a plot twist in the story. Miss Page, this isn't what you testified to the court. Still, she denied all and claimed not to know about the pregnancy. And that her son was involved with another woman instead.
They talked to her and to find out what was going on. She didn't look pregnant. She was holding her head down. She had no stomach whatsoever.
But at the same time, this was my first time meeting you, Miss Page.
Miss Lusk and Miss Anderson, my son didn't have a particular type. He was in a relationship.
The plaintiff's mommy testified to her recollection of the past, how baby mama was so invested in glorifying her son. And that's not all. She even went to the lengths to humiliate them by giving them a used baby walker while rubbing paternity doubt in their face.
I broke the news to her about my daughter being pregnant by her son. The very first thing she said to me is, my son is a legend. My son has women coming out the woodwork. She seemed proud. Once she suggested bringing over a used walker. We declined her walker, and she's publicly putting it on Facebook.
Wow, Miss Page, that is low. Please say that these accusations are false. Well, they were not. The woman was crazy enough to take the matter to social media. Like, what legacy was she promoting?
She inboxed me, and me and her went back and forth on Facebook.
You're absolutely. But what led up to that, Miss Page? What led up to that, Miss Page?
One at a time.
You made a post.
I know anything about a stroller because I'm not providing a stroller for a child
It
that I don't
wasn't a
even know.
stroller, it was a walker.
Turns out that the baby girl had Paige listed as her name on the birth certificate, so the father had claimed the baby. Still, it wasn't convincing enough for the defendant. Further, we got to know that the baby mama had no idea about the other woman in the picture.
In the case of Lusk versus Page, when it comes to 3-year-old Samari Page, it has been determined by this court. The probability of relatedness between Miss Page and Samari Page is 99.96%.